This is the story of how one phone call, one sleepless night, and one designer's wild imagination saved an entire company. It changed luxury watchmaking forever. Back in 1972, Audemars Piguet was a small, family-owned manufacturer tucked away in Le Brassus, in the heart of Switzerland's Vallée de Joux, cranking out fewer than 5,000 watches a year. The quartz crisis was steamrolling through the entire Swiss watch industry like a freight train. Cheap, accurate, mass-produced quartz movements were making traditional mechanical watches look like dinosaurs from a forgotten era. Legendary names were closing their doors. Workshops were going dark, and here was Audemars Piguet, a company founded in 1875 with nearly 100 years of heritage on the line, staring down what looked like the end. What happened next became one of the greatest stories in watchmaking history. Picture this. April 10th, 1971, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Georges Gaulet, the managing director of Audemars Piguet, picks up the phone and calls the legendary Gérald Genta. If you know watches, that name should give you chills. Genta is widely regarded as the single most influential watch designer who ever lived. Over his career, he created more than 100,000 watches. The Omega Constellation, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, the IWC Ingenieur. Christie's called his work the Faberge of watches. The Wall Street Journal labeled them the world's most complicated and pricey watches. But on that April afternoon in 1971, Gaulet wasn't calling to chat. He had a problem, and he needed it solved by morning. He said, "Mr. Genta, I need a steel sports watch that has never been done before. I want it to be something totally new and waterproof. I want the design by tomorrow morning." Tomorrow morning. An entirely new concept in luxury watchmaking conjured from nothing overnight. Here is the thing about Gérald Genta. The man was born in Geneva in 1931, and he was, by every account, a creative force of nature. An artist first, a watchmaker second. That night, sitting alone with a blank page, his mind wandered to something he had seen years earlier at Lake Geneva. Divers. Specifically those old-fashioned diving helmets, the kind bolted to the suit with heavy, visible screws. 8 screws holding that helmet tight against the crushing pressure of the deep. That image became a watch. By the next morning, Genta had sketched something the watch world had never seen. An octagonal bezel with 8 visible hexagonal screws. An integrated bracelet that flowed seamlessly from the case. A textured dial that caught light like nothing else. At 39 millimeters, it was considered enormous for the era, big enough to earn the nickname Jumbo. And the whole thing was made of stainless steel. Not gold, not platinum, steel. This was radical. This was borderline offensive to the establishment. In the early 70s, a luxury watch meant precious metals, a leather strap, and a slim profile you could slide under a French cuff. What Genta proposed was the opposite of everything the industry believed in. Audemars Piguet named it the Royal Oak, after the legendary tree where King Charles II hid from his pursuers during the English Civil War. 8 ships of the Royal Navy had carried that name. It was a name steeped in resilience, in survival against the odds. They could not have chosen better. On April 15, 1972, the Royal Oak reference 5402 debuted at the Basel Watch Fair. The movement inside was the ultra-thin Caliber 2 121, a masterpiece of Swiss engineering. Then came the price tag, 3,300 Swiss francs for a steel watch. To put that in perspective, the most expensive steel watch on the market at the time retailed for around 850 francs. A Rolex Submariner cost a fraction of the Royal Oak's price. Audemars Piguet was asking 4 times, some say 10 times, the going rate for a stainless steel timepiece. Their own gold watches in the catalog were cheaper. A yellow gold model with an ultra-thin caliber was listed at 2,990 francs. The Royal Oak, in steel, cost more than gold. The advertising leaned into it with magnificent audacity. The costliest stainless steel watch in the world. And later, perhaps even more brilliantly, would you buy a Rembrandt for its canvas? The industry's response was swift and brutal. Critics said it was ugly. They said the exposed screws looked industrial, unfinished. They said the integrated bracelet was impractical. They said the price was insane. Many predicted Audemars Piguet would be bankrupt within months. The first batch was about 1,000 pieces. They did not fly off the shelves. It took time. The concept was so new, so far ahead of its moment, that most markets simply did not understand what they were looking at. But there was one country that got it immediately: Italy. The Italians, led by style icons like Giovanni Agnelli, the head of Fiat who famously wore his watches over his shirt cuff, understood instinctively what Genta had created. This was not just a watch. It was a statement. It was elegance fused with athleticism, refinement, meeting raw industrial confidence. Slowly, the tide turned. The A-series, produced between 1972 and 1975, eventually totaled 1,937 pieces. Then came the B-series. Then more. By the time reference 5402 concluded its full production run, 4,288 steel pieces had been made across all series. That watch, that original jumbo, became the foundation for everything Audemars Piguet is today. In 1976, they introduced the First Lady's Royal Oak. That same year, Genta's second masterpiece for a different brand arrived, the Patek Philippe Nautilus. In 1984, AP launched the Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar, reference 5554, proving the design could house serious complications. And then came 1993. In 1993, a young designer named Emmanuel Guit presented something that would split the watch community right down the middle. The Royal Oak Offshore was a massive 42mm chronograph, soon nicknamed the Beast. When Gérald Genta saw it for the first time at Baselworld, he reportedly stormed into the Audemars Piguet booth, confronted Guit directly, and declared, "You have ruined my watch. You are a murderer." He called it a sea elephant. Only 61 offshores sold in that entire first year. Audemars Piguet was so uncertain about the model that the first 100 pieces did not even have offshore printed on the case back. They hedged their bets, saving the name in case they needed it for something else. But time vindicated the offshore just as it had vindicated the original. The watch found its audience among athletes, celebrities, and a younger generation of collectors who wanted something bold, something unapologetic. Meanwhile, the broader Swiss industry was being revitalized by visionaries like Nicolas Hayek and the Swatch Group, proving that Swiss watchmaking could survive and thrive in the modern era. Now let's talk about where all of this has led, because the numbers in 2025 are staggering. Audemars Piguet, still family-owned after 150 years, still based in Le Brassus in the Vallée de Joux, now generates approximately 2.6 billion Swiss francs in annual revenue. They produce only about 53,000 watches per year. That means the average selling price per watch exceeds 51,000 Swiss francs. The Royal Oak, that controversial steel watch from 1972 that critics said would bankrupt the company, now accounts for roughly 88% of all sales. In 2025, Audemars Piguet overtook Omega in the sales rankings, a brand making 53,000 watches per year, outselling a brand making millions. On the secondary market, those original 5402 jumbos from the 70s now sell for anywhere between $100,000 and $500,000. Genta's own personal Royal Oak, the one he bought on May 15, 1978, and customized with a yellow gold bezel he made himself in his own workshop, sold at Sotheby's for over $2.1 million. Here's perhaps the most poetic detail of this entire story. Gérald Genta, the man who designed more than 100,000 watches in his lifetime, the man who created arguably the most important wristwatch of the 20th century, preferred not to wear watches himself. He did not even own a Royal Oak until 6 years after he designed it. He passed away on August 17, 2011, at the age of 80. But what he sketched in a single night in 1971 did not just save Audemars Piguet. It redefined what a luxury watch could be. It proved that steel could be precious, that sports watches belonged in the highest echelons of watchmaking, and that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas come not from committees or focus groups, but from one brilliant mind working against an impossible deadline. The Royal Oak was not just a watch, it was a dare. And 53 years later, the entire industry is still living in its shadow.